The changes in the education sector, the way we assess students, the rise of digitalization and artificial intelligence, the changes in the learning environment, and many other unusual and controversial questions. We will be examining them one after the other in this channel. My name is Daniel Wiśniewski, and this is Education Chapter. Welcome to the Education Chapter. Today we have a very hot topic to discuss: the exposure of children to digital technologies and digitalization used in education in early childhood and care. My name is Daniel Wiśniewski, this is the Education Chapter, and together with me I have Gonzalez Sancho from OECD, who is a policy analyst who co-authored a very interesting study on empowering young children in the digital age. Carlos, thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Hello, Daniel, and hello to our viewers. Thank you for having me.
Carlos, I know that you developed this study because you wanted to see what is the background right now with respect to digitalization in early childhood and care. So if you could maybe point out a few findings from that report before we even start asking you the controversial questions.
Yes, well, the key motivation for this report, and the reason I think OECD countries or countries ask the OECD to work on this topic, is because digitalization is a reality. We know that young children are increasingly using digital tools at increasingly early ages in a very diverse range of ways. And we don't know yet too well what the potential implications, what the effects will be long term. This is early days, really. But the concern is there. So even if we don't have a very robust evidence base yet on the impacts, countries want to know, how could they respond? So this report tries to look at different options for the early education and care sector. We're basically talking children 0 to 6, the settings in which these children receive education and care, early education and care. And, what is it that countries could do? We're not prescriptive in this report. There's not a single direction or a single response. The challenges are multiple. And this is what we try to do. We map the challenges, and we also put forward, potential policy responses.
Mm-hmm. And so, what are the different policy approaches varying from country to country with respect to introducing digital tools into kindergartens? Because, as you said, we are talking about children from 0 to 6. And I remember I was a child in 1990s or 1980s even, I'm afraid. And back then we did not have internet, and I think we grew up pretty much fine. So the question is, why would you do that? And why would certain countries introduce those digital tools at such an early stage?
Yes, this is new for many of us, and I think we belong to the same generation, so it is a new reality for a lot of us and parents, but also policymakers confronted with this new reality and families. So the policy responses, one is admitting this is a reality in the sense that children are getting exposed to these technologies primarily in home settings. They're seeing it around them. And these practices are steered by their parents, all the siblings, and other children. And the question is, why should the early education and care sector take this into account or introduce technologies? And here you have a range of options. There are some countries who are more on the restrictive side, very much limiting the use of tools because they think we don't know yet about potential negative impacts, things like excessive extreme exposure. And also it could be disruptive of the things we should be doing in early education settings, in-person interactions, play, collaborative activities between children, etc. Others are more on, rather than limiting these, taking always a careful approach, but more than just, banning technologies, applying any blanket ban, zero technology, is more about helping children to develop responsible, healthy, safe, and productive experiences with technology. And for these, you need children to develop what we call early digital literacy. So this is a very emergent understanding of, what the opportunities are and also what the risks are. So this will be helping children to live in a world in which technology will be present. They will be using technology quite often. That's probably, I think, a safe expectation. So countries are saying, we have to train the professionals. We have to also make them understand what these opportunities and risks are. Use the good aspects, interactivity, for instance, of technology, and go very careful with introducing them, a bit in a way that it's, not adding anything to the educational experience, and also being very careful about the risks. But educating children about the risks, it's already just a very important start.
Right. You see, I'm still from this generation where for us digitalization was something new, and I'm coming from an Eastern European country, from Poland. So in 1990s, I was living in a small village back there, and indeed, internet was something that was emerging in mid-1990s, computers and stuff like this. So it was everything that I know about it. It was something I needed to learn. So it was not something that I was born into. With respect to my children, that's a different story. They of course are exposed to digital tools. They can use, they can use a tablet. Sometimes they watch something on a tablet and so on. They know how to use it, like on a basic level, but it's true that they kind of live in a totally different reality. And now the question is, do we have any evidence or studies that would measure the impact of those digital tools, tablets, computers, games, on small children? Is it positive or negative? What do you think?
Well, we don't have a very robust body of evidence yet. So this is early days. And in fact, most of the things we know about, for instance, exposure to screens for children are based, scientific studies actually based on the experience of TV, television, which was, of course, a tool, introduced, historically speaking, much earlier. And we've been able to assess, long-term impact, but with digital tools, the digital tools we're referring to, and some of those you mentioned, tablets, etc., it is very early days, and it's also a moving target because both the technology and the practices evolve very rapidly. So we don't yet know quite well what these impacts will be. I'm talking, in a long term, right? In late childhood, adolescence, etc. We don't quite know yet. So what does that mean? That means, we should, for the moment, I think, avoid both moral panics about this is catastrophic and leading to blanket bans, but also we should also be very careful with the approaches. Excessive exposure, we don't know yet the impact, so we should also be attending to that. So it is early days, but I think also important to remember is that there's no single impact. For some outcomes it could be positive, for some other aspects it could be less positive or negative, and it will also vary depending on the people and the uses we make, because there's no single response to this question. So it's going to be a range of impacts depending on what we do with it. And I think context of use is actually the key. What research is showing us that impact, whether positive or negative, is very much mediated by what you do with these tools.
Yeah, it's also about establishing a healthy relationship between humans and machines, humans and digital tools and everything like this. Because I think I spoke even on this channel with a number of people already on digitalization, and they tell me it's really about, it will be our decision with respect to what kind of skills we're going to give away and will be replaced by the digital tools. I give you an example. In the past, when you and we were in the schools, we used to write everything handwritten. Right? We were using pencils, pens, and we were actually writing everything down. Nowadays, we see a decreased ability of children with handwriting because more and more we are using keyboards. And that is one of the worries I have when as a parent, how can we really take these decisions of what kind of skills can we give away and introduce something else into the school with the use of the digital tools. Also, I mean, when we speak about children, that's one thing. But when we speak about very small children, I mean, digital tools can be used for the fun aspect of it. You can show them a movie about animals, or you can use an interactive book with some kind of different, with a pen that will show a certain, I don't know, a noise that this animal makes whenever you kind of close it to that animal. So they can learn the names of the animal, they can learn where these animals live, and also the sounds they make. But at the same time, we could also do that without digital tools. So to what extent, so the question is for what are we going to use that? It's more, is it really about preparing these people for the 21st century? So the moment that they actually have to face with it, they kind of born into it?
I think on the question of competences, I think this is true not just for digital technology. It's any type of technology, I mean, that changes, the needs of, what is it that we need to do. So, a calculator, I think it's another example. In the past, in schools, we would do more of mathematical calculations that now, we use other tools, or, I think any technology, heavy lifting, we've done less of that. It becomes less when there's a technology available there. So I think, that's not unique by any means to digital tools. On the point about, can we do it without? Certainly many of the things, and here I think this is the, one of the key issues, identifying what are the practices and the situations in which technology can, expand learning and development opportunities, play. There's also digital play increasingly important for young children. So identifying, these instances, these situations or contexts in which technology adds something, rather than being just a disruptive or substituting what you could be doing better. I think, again, what we need to do is a better understanding of how some use of technology can support what we know already are the good, principles for children's learning and development in the early years. So again, how can it support play? How can it support warm, rich interactions, collaboration, engagement with an activity, without, again, being too distractive? And very basic things. We know, for instance, sleep is key to young children. Very much key for a consolidation of any learning that takes place, and physically, to rest physically. So, very basic practice about not exposing children to screens too long in the day, and especially not doing late in the day. So, to not disrupt sleep, which is also essential for learning. So again, understanding how it fits in this equation of, the good practices for early learning and development.
Mm-hmm. And so what are the let's say, identified risks to this? We spoke a little bit about the positive impact, that it can enhance play, that it can make it more interactive, that it also indeed helps the children to kind of be grown into the world full of technology, and kind of becoming not like me and you, nomads that have to enter into that world, but rather those people that are born in it. And so there are positives about it, but what are the risks that you have identified in your study?
In this study, we follow, this is an OECD typology of digital risks. So these are, increasingly documented and identified, and they range from physical and social emotional well-being from excessive exposure, to also privacy, privacy threats to privacy and misuse of data later on. So there's a range of risks, and the important thing is that children themselves begin to gain an awareness. It would be very basic at these ages, but they understand that some of the actions they do with these tools, if they're on a tablet or watch something, it can leave a trace of data of their activity, for instance. So just getting that understanding is important for children. Also understanding that their actions can have consequences for others. So responsible behavior then, later on, at these ages, we're not, children should not on social media and the like, but understanding again that things you do can leave a trace, others can see them, etc. So this is the same for easy professionals, understanding what these risks are. And not to forget also about parents, for instance, we as parents, we have to understand that it can be disruptive of our interactions with children. This is what the literature call technofriends. So technology interfering with healthy interactions that we have with young children, making eye contact, being available to them. If they see us parents or educators, on our phones or paying more attention to these tools rather than to them, that's disruptive. So for everybody, this, understanding what the risks are in this reality, from big to small, it's very important. And I think easy has a very important role to play. Early education and care settings. Again, understanding what the risks are and responding to those.
It's actually quite interesting because, in my work as an educational expert, I often say that schools do not only educate the children, but educate all the members of the family. And it's actually quite interesting because I've seen so many parents talking to their children with their eyes on the screen. We have this tendency of carrying our phone everywhere and kind of reading from it, even if we are talking to the kids. And certainly we do not recommend those. You're very much right about a certain disruption that can happen with respect to the relations between children and their parents. And that technology is sort of, one thing that you haven't mentioned here, that is that technology and the use of it can even become an addiction. And that is indeed something that worries me as a parent. So to what extent my children, which are very small, can use those tools in a way that it's safe on the one hand, but on the other hand, make sure that they will not become those beings like most of us are becoming, people that just kind of, we kind of replace our social interactions with screens and all kinds of digital tools. Following this up though, do you have any data about the parents' response to this? What do you think the parents may think about that? Is there any study that would make any substantial evidence about the parents' response to the use of digital technologies for small children?
Well, I think a lot of parents are still asking these questions, and there's no clear or single answer. There's a variety of positions, again, I think, among parents. But we see a lot of, there's a lot of moral panic on the consequence of technology. And I think, we need caution here on both, going all in, my children should just, technology is the only thing they should be doing and paying attention to. Digital skills are more important than other type of skills, or digital practices more important than other type of practices. I think that's not the right answer. But at the same time, trying to isolate kids completely from technology can also be harmful in some respects, in the sense of, making them less well prepared for the challenges of the future, including protecting themselves against these digital risks. So there's a variety of positions, and I think this is also reflected in the positions we've seen of easy professionals. Some are more enthusiastic or more receptive to the potential introduction of digital tools in easy settings. Others are more cautious, or and I think the case is still for those who advocate a greater use of technology. The case has to be made, about also the benefits, proving the benefits can exist, and what are the conditions under which these benefits realize and come into being, and also for those who are have a very critical view, again, to say, well, let's take a moderate position in that. What does research say? And we need time. We need time. We need the right frameworks, and we have to ask the right questions, and not go, I think, into all in, all out positions.
Do you have in OECD in any way any kind of study that would identify the skills that children might need to manage digital tools properly in any way? Because you see, one thing is, I mean, digital tools, as the name says it, is actually, they are tools, and they have, of course, many benefits. They allow us to communicate easier on long distances. They can help us to do lots of daily works online. You can do banking, you can do communicating, you can do phones, you can do mails, and so on. So there's plenty of a positive impact of digital tools that we use on a daily basis, and it has become the normality. Now, do you have any set of skills that we would have to, I don't know, foster in our small children in order for them to be kind of more, I don't know, competent, independent, aware, conscious users of digital tools in any way? You said media literacy, digital literacy, and so on. This is certainly one thing, but is there any other, I don't know, study that would speak about this?
The report proposes a model for early digital literacy that is based on all the frameworks that exist on what digital skills can be, the different components, the different dimensions. So what we have done is to reformulate these a little bit more on the age group. So the skills, I would say, digital skills for young children are not so different from the skills that older children or adolescents may need. The essential dimensions are the same. It's about the level of complexity. So for young children, this is an emerging, getting an emerging understanding, emerging sense of those. So, and we've identified, I would say, 5 big components. One is, probably this is the least important, but it's a transversal, how to operate the tools, how to use the tools. But this is something that young children can learn to do almost by themselves quite rapidly, how to operate the tools manually, etc. And then, but the most important, the other dimensions are understanding, getting an emerging understanding of how to use digital technologies for learning, seeing that there are opportunities for learning, understanding this can be integrated in learning activities, understanding it can be used for play and self-expression. So this is a tool, as you said, that they can use in their play and self-expression, say the things they find important. Understanding, getting a basic understanding of the digital risks and how to protect themselves and others in digital environments. So this is another very important aspect of early digital literacy. And finally, understanding, very early understanding of computational thinking. So this is a machine, I can control it, I can give it orders, there's a sequence of orders, and saying, this is something we can do. We can control computers and machines. So this thinking, as a computational thinking, as they say, beyond just the programming languages, but understanding the interaction human-machine.
And any evidence about, you mentioned among the risks, you said about their, I don't know, children's well-being. Because, imagine that, I don't know, again, if you're using this for the same of games and it's supposed to just to support the games that small children do, is there any evidence about the well-being of those kids when it comes to being exposed to digital tools? Is it better or worse? Is it is there any knowledge about this? I think you mentioned that we have very little evidence for the time being, but is there anything?
I think, in terms of the determinants of children's well-being are actually well known, thanks to the science of, child development. And, we know children, what they need is warm and stable interactions with adults, with caring adults. And of course, besides attending to the basic needs, being fed, getting rest, being protected, etc. And I think this is the most important thing for children's well-being. So technology comes in as a factor because it's present in their lives, but it's just one among many other factors for well-being. And we don't know yet, it's hard to say this is just what the impact will be without taking into consideration how it interacts with a lot of other things. But I would say that both completely isolating children from technology and from the interactions it can enable with other with peers, with family, etc., and overexposing them, both can have negative impacts on children's well-being. We've also seen that later on in adolescence, that not participating in these digital environments, it can be detrimental for the well-being, as it can be overexposure. So I think the real challenge is understanding what the key determinants of children well-being are, how technology can play with those. And I think for guidelines for both parents and easy professionals are very important. We need more consistent messages about what the risks and the opportunities are, a bit less noise on extreme messages on either side. And that's important for us to have more consistent practices with children.
Correct. Thank you very much, Carlos.
Daniel?
A question to our viewers. What do you think about this? Shall we be introducing digital tools into early childhood, into kindergartens, into children, into education institutions that take care of children from 0 to 6? What are your thoughts about it? Is it exposing them too early, or is it a necessity for the 21st century to get them used to the use of technology? Let us know about it. Comment if you like the content that you see. Subscribe. You will receive a notification about our next movies. And I wanted to thank our guest, Carlos Gonzalez Sancho from OECD, for introducing us to this topic. I think it's a very controversial and yet I think something that should be studied, a topic that requires us to study it more. So thanks a lot for this cutting edge research that you have been performing, and let's see what the future holds, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks a lot, Carlos.